There's a version of you that is possible, and there is a version of you that exists right now. The distance between those two people, that gap, that is where your entire life is happening. Marcus Aurelius understood this. He was the most powerful man on earth, and he still woke up every single morning and wrote to himself, holding himself accountable and refusing to stop becoming. The Bible understood this. Viktor Frankl understood this inside of a concentration camp when he watched men die, not from physical weakness, but from having nothing left to become. And I understand this from my own life, consistently choosing growth over safety. Today, we're breaking down why growth is not optional. It is your duty. Stay with me. Now, there's a famous quote from Socrates that says, "The unexamined life is not worth living." The unexamined life is not worth living. And it's really a testament to self-reflection and constantly being in a state of auditing your beliefs and questioning things in search of wisdom, in search of growth. Now, I want to touch on Marcus Aurelius because, he was the ruler of the Roman Empire at one point in time. So he was one of the most powerful men in the history of the world. And he had a lot of power in his hands. And that requires tough decision making. That requires a lot of pressure. And, the reason why he is a good example is because of all of the power that he had. But Marcus Aurelius kept a daily journal of a daily account of him questioning himself and really seeking a better version of himself every day, holding himself to a higher standard every single day. And that journal was never meant to be published, but it went on to become what we know as today, Meditations by Marcus Aurelius. And him himself, he was known as a very wise man, very wise and emotionally intelligent man that made great decisions. And that's just the historical account overall. But the key thing that I want to get from Marcus Aurelius is that the process of daily reflection in search of growth, evolution, and development. And I would say that that daily practice and habit that he had contributed to him being such of a world-known great leader and wise leader. Let's take another example. There's a story from the Bible, the parable of the talents. Matthew chapter 25, verses 14 to 30. A master gives 3 servants talents, right? Equating to money and value. 2 of them invest and multiply. 1 buries it out of fear. Okay? Now, the servant who buried it, who played it safe, who was scared to take a risk, who was scared to step outside of his comfort zone, he was condemned. Now, the key thing here is that he didn't fail by trying. Like, he didn't try and something went wrong and he failed. He didn't even try. He didn't even try at all. And that's a lot of people out there in life today where they're scared to make a mistake. There's a fear of failure that they have when it comes to stepping outside of their comfort zone and doing something different. And, this passage from the Bible, this story is a great example because maybe you won't get condemned by somebody, but life will condemn you if you're not going out there and actually taking the necessary steps and doing what is required of you to get to where you want to go. Now, for me, myself, I played it safe for a portion of my life. Like I went to college, I got a degree in computer engineering, and worked in corporate America for 6 years as a systems engineer. But then I realized that in life, you either sacrifice growth for safety or you sacrifice safety for growth. And growth isn't something that I'm willing to sacrifice. Growth is a huge part of my value system personally, growth and development. So, that led me into entrepreneurship, sales, starting businesses, failing businesses, trading, right? Going through this journey, and it's all contributed to the man I am today. And I wouldn't trade any of those experiences, the highs, the lows, the in-betweens. It's all still valuable, right? In that process of becoming, in the process of growth, evolution, and development. Because as long as you play it comfortable and you play it safe, you'll never be able to learn the lessons that you need to learn. You'll never be able to face the tests that you need to face in order for you to become that version of yourself that is required for you to ultimately live the life of your dreams. So you have to fall in love with the process of growth and seeing yourself become a better version of yourself. And once you start seeing it, like for me, my intellect changed, my habits changed, my fitness changed, my health changed, my relationships changed, my environment changed. Everything changes. Now, I want to talk about 2 more things here. Neuroplasticity as well. Now, neuroplasticity has shown that your brain physically rewires itself, based on the thoughts and the behaviors that you repeat, right? And Dr. Joe Dispenza's work has shown this and proved this. Now, we've heard the term before, you either use it or you lose it. But that's actually based in neuroscience. And the reason why is that neural pathways that aren't challenged, that aren't used, weaken over time through what's called synaptic pruning. And the brain literally prunes away what you don't use. So every time that we choose the comfortable path that doesn't force us to grow, that doesn't challenge us, every time that you choose comfort over challenge, you're actually literally shrinking your brain. You're shrinking your mind because your brain thinks that it doesn't need it. It doesn't need to use that part because it's not being challenged. And science has also proven that cognitive decline accelerates in people who stop learning, stop being challenged, stop engaging with complex problems as well. So our brains are designed and built to grow. But when you don't utilize its natural function, it starts to revert the other way. Okay. Now, last thing I want to touch on here is Viktor Frankl's examples from Man's Search for Meaning. And Viktor Frankl survived Nazi concentration camps, and he was a psychiatrist. And he studied what was the difference between the men who survived and the men who didn't. And it wasn't physical strength. It was meaning. It was whether they had something to become, a sense of purpose, something ahead of them. And the men who gave up on their future, who stopped striving, deteriorated the fastest. Not just emotionally, but physically, and then died. So purpose gives us life. Thriving gives us life. Even when you look at nature, nature is either thriving or dying. And we can attribute that to our experience as well. Man, I hope that this video added value to you, and it's a reminder for some people. Maybe it's a wake-up call for others. But every day, wake up and strive. Strive to be better, to grow, to develop, to evolve, to learn, because it's your duty. It's your purpose. Peace, love, and abundance.